Welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast, where your host, Josh Sweeney, will give you, the business leaders, HR professionals, and company culture aficionados, the knowledge you need to take your company culture to the next level.
Hello, my name is Josh Sweeney, and welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast. This is season 2, where we talk all about hiring, and I am joined here by my co-host, Annelle. Annelle, introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Annelle Barnett, and my company is Marketing Mob, and we are a marketing, recruiting, and staffing firm.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
This is going to be a fantastic episode. Before I get started, I would like to thank Prototype Prime for this amazing podcast space. Now, the topic of this episode is recruiting or hiring assignments. So it's all about the assignments that we give to people that we're trying to hiring through the hiring process and what those are used for, what messages they convey, and some of the pros and cons and kind of the negative sides that Annelle's heard from as feedback from some candidates and other recruiters. So we're going to dive into what those assignments are. So real quick, why don't you get us started off by telling us a little bit about the candidate assignments and how they're used and why?
Right. So the candidate assignments are actually a great way for an employer to understand the capabilities of a candidate. So they're obviously good for the employer. The bad side of it, I guess, is that the candidates often perceive that as free work. And so it's a common thread in communication among job seekers that companies are asking them to do marketing plans for their first, 90 days that they would be in the role, or they're doing design work for the organization, or they're writing a press release for the organization. And all of those are really great ways of testing candidates' skills to understand whether they really can do what they say that they're going to do. But from a candidate's perspective, they're seeing it often as they're being asked to do free work. And there have been examples or times when a candidate, creates a piece of collateral, designs a piece of collateral, and then 6 months later they see it actually being used by the employer, and that doesn't go over very well. And of course those rumors spread, and then everyone is kind of on that bandwagon of the free work, and they're gonna steal my product.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've never heard of that where it was used in a way that could actually be used by the business. I know if somebody came in or I was hiring somebody and said, hey, give me a 30-day marketing plan, like they just don't know enough about what's going on. We already have a 1-year strategic plan. We already pretty much know where we're going. So that marketing plan is not going to be very effective. It's more of just the thought exercise, and that's how we would use it. But I think it would be different if we asked them to design an ad and gave them parameters and then started using that ad.
Right. I mean, it's personally, I feel that it's highly unethical because you really are getting free work from them. It's one thing if you're in an interview and you get some knowledge out of interviewing someone, kind of just coincidentally, and you learn something. We learn things every day. That you might end up, thinking is a great idea for your company, and you might put it into practice, but it's a whole different thing to use actual work, especially, something that is like design that the candidate very quickly recognizes. So I think there are definitely ways to use assignments effectively and for employers to test whether a candidate can actually do what they say they can. And that's often more in a hypothetical situation where you set up a hypothetical of maybe something that happened in the past. If you're like a marketing agency and you had a client that had specific requests in the past, and then you asked this individual to explain or walk through how they would handle that or write and what they would write about in that case, then I think that that's typically the best way to handle assignments.
Yeah. I know in the development world, when we were looking at PHP developers, it was all hypothetical. It was throwaway code, which, does seem like a little bit of a waste, but again, it's the same. It's a process, and you don't want to be reusing something somebody gave you at no cost, right, during the hiring process. But we intentionally gave everybody the same one because it was a good way to compare later.
Right.
How long did that candidate stay? How long, how good did they do? Well, we could look back through the assessment and say, how do we correlate what they did during that assessment or test or, task that they had to do versus how well they did in our environment. So we took a little bit of a more strategic approach, and maybe that's the long-term approach that people need to be thinking about with these marketing assignments where, if it's in the same role and you're hiring a lot of people in the similar role, then you may get some ideas around that campaign or message. But if everybody's doing the same one for each of those roles over a period of time, then you have a good comparison base. You can look at that historically.
Yeah, and you're able to establish benchmarks as well. So this is kind of the minimum that we're willing to accept for this position, and base candidates off of that going forward. So it's a great way to determine whether a candidate knows what they say that they know, but it has to be done in a respectful way and respecting someone's time. I've actually asked for assignments to be done for my own organization, and I've paid the individuals for it. So the hours that they put into doing the assignment, for instance, I hire people that are called sourcers. And so a sourcer is going out and trying to find the passive candidates that match the role. And I wanted to test some people out and see if they knew how to do it like they said that they did. And so I, set up a situation where they gave me 5 hours and I paid them for the 5 hours. So I felt good about it and they felt good about it. And in some cases we parted ways after that, and in some cases we moved forward. So,
yeah, I know we've used a similar tactic for more of the outsourced items that we have. So if we go on Upwork or, some other platform where we will actually say, we're going to pay you for the 5 hours to do this. And we give 3 different people the same task.
Right.
And we get to very quickly for a low amount of money, test them out and make a really good decision up front, as opposed to picking one and, finding out months in that, you could have had a better candidate or that it's not going well or whatever it might be.
Right.
Haven't really looked at doing that, in any full-time aspect. In our full-time aspect, there are some tests that come into place. There are some, I don't want to use the word assessments because we do personality assessments, but different tasks that we put in front of them to see how they progress through those, what they were thinking and how to get it done. But again, I can't say that we've ever used it in production. So,
yeah. And, and if you pay the individual for the work that you're asking them to do, then you're free to use it however you wish. So if, for instance, you're interviewing a designer who might be a great designer and may produce a really quality, brochure or whatever it is that you ask them to do, but they may not be the right culture fit or personality fit. They may just not fit in the organization for another reason. But since you've paid them, you can now actually use the product that was produced. So
yeah, you can use it and see if they're a fit personality-wise, culture-wise, and then decide whether you want to move forward with them.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. It definitely can turn candidates off if the assignment is too extensive. I mean, a lot of them are working full-time jobs. And if they're asked to do an assignment that takes 8 hours, I mean, how, and you want them to return it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge.
Which is often the case.
Set your expectations.
Right. Then, it's almost, you're asking for a lot, I guess. And so come up with creative ways of getting examples and work samples that, give you the idea of their work, but doesn't make them feel used, basically.
Yeah. And I can see actually a little bit of the other side of just some of these candidates may be being aware of what the other opportunities are in the market and who they're being compared against. Because when you talk about a local resource you need in your office, you have a certain pool. But in a lot of these roles, like I know a lot of people with marketing agencies, and a lot of these roles are getting outsourced, right? They're getting broken down into their elements, and they're finding people that are specialized in social or specialized in very specific areas and taking tactical approaches to save on cost. And what I find is when you're going out and outsourcing, say to the Philippines, you're actually getting people that are very cost effective, in a lot of ways comparable to the talent, for a lot less money, and they're actually eager to get an assignment. They want to show off their skills. So I do think it's important to make sure in some way we're a little bit checking our ego. Like, if I was applying for a job or other people in the US, you kind of got to check that and realize we are in a global environment. So some of the comparisons that are happening are with other people that are more than happy to do that, because that's a game changer for them to get the role, whereas we have a lot of jobs available here now for people who need to be local. So in that fight for talent and that difference, I guess it's good to just be aware of the comparison.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point, because I think the perspective of the candidate is sometimes skewed a little too. Rather than thinking of it as free work, you could think of it as, this is my opportunity to really shine. Let me really show them how great I am at this. And, often in an interview setting, you're just telling them how good you are at it. And you don't have the opportunity to communicate. You're only communicating it. You don't have the opportunity to show them. So if you kind of change your mindset and turn it around as a candidate to it being more of, I'm proud of my work rather than feeling used, then that would be a more effective strategy, I think, for the actual candidate.
Yeah, going a little more altruistically and saying, use it or don't, do what you're going to do with it, but this is my time to shine. And I would love to say that I thought that far into it before, but I know I went through a very extensive hiring process at one of the best companies I worked for, and I ended up having to do this kind of test, a write-up, and I ended up writing 16 pages that I submitted. Now I got the role.
Of course.
So, instead of something that was trying to save time and I was very busy, I think I did use it for my time to shine and say, well, how much do I have to write to be that much, to have provided that much of a better response than maybe who else I'm theoretically, competing against for this role. Definitely was not that thoughtful about it. I don't know that I did it with intent. It's just maybe by nature, but that's the way that it happened.
And that's what the employer is trying to see. They're trying to see what your nature is. Are you going to go put the extra effort in? Or are you just going to do what they ask, specifically just the things that they ask, and not give them anything above and beyond? So it's a great way for an employer to see if you're really the right candidate. Now, I do have a story of one that was, kind of the opposite of that, but it was a situation where the candidate had interviewed with the company, and the hiring manager forgot to give the on-site assignment. And so the assignment didn't get done while this individual was at the interview. And so the hiring manager contacted this person back and asked them to come out to Norcross to complete the on-site assignment. And it was at 3:30 on a Friday.
Right. That's a bad time to be going to Norcross from wherever.
Exactly. 3:30 on a Friday. And it was literally like 2 paragraphs of why we should hire you.
Oh, no.
But they didn't trust that this individual would do it on their own at their house. So they made you come and do it on site. And so that's an example of turning a candidate off by your assignment. So if you're, asking this person to drive out to Norcross from, like the Buckhead area or whatever, for reference, drive like a 45-minute commute to come and do a 5-minute assignment in order to turn around and drive back to Buckhead because you don't trust them to do the assignment.
That is not a company culture fit for that candidate.
It is not a place that you want to go and work.
These people are going to waste lots of my time.
Right.
Let's find another opportunity.
Right. So, the assignments also give the candidate an opportunity to see what it's like to work for these people as well.
Yeah, that's a great point because, all of ours were while you were already there.
Right.
You're already on site, and we would just let you know, instead of a 1-hour interview, it could be up to 3.
Right.
Here's some of the things that we're going to do. Just make it an expectation. And then if it went well, we even took them to lunch, in the afternoon after that, and we timed it right to go to lunch. And for us, lunch was part of the discovery of the candidate and kind of making time and building rapport with them and understanding whether they're going to be a fit, but also, hey, it's a free lunch for coming out and spending the time and being on site with us. So I think there's lots of ways that you can do it that are both ethical, respect people's time, and that, really.
It's ultimately treating people as humans,
Right.
Treating everyone as humans. So treat people the way that you would like to be treated, and then the world works well, I think. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we would like you to think about the testing methodology, how you go through the assignments that you give candidates. Is it in a respectful, ethical way? Are you maximizing that time and conveying the company culture and feel that you want to convey during that process? So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Epic Company Culture Podcast with Josh Sweeney. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. For additional content and transcripts, visit epicculture.co. If you have questions or topics you would like us to address or expand on, tweet us at epicculture1 or email at podcast@epicculture.co.